Hello, welcome back to BigGeek Mini Geek. Today we're going to be doing a little bit something different. I'm going to start doing a series of how-to videos. Don't necessarily have Mini Geek in them, but they pertain to usually running games with kids or some sort of topic about games with kids or gaming with kids. So today, what I'm planning on discussing is how to use role-playing games to teach. And so we're going to focus on today is how to use a role-playing game to teach a moral or a value that you want to teach to your kids. Now this assumes that you have some basic understanding of what Dungeons & Dragons is. There are other videos out there that can describe that, and I will go into those games as I review more things about them. But safe to say that Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game where you take on the role of a character, and in a story, it's a very interactive story game, right? And I'm going to talk about, real quick, a couple different things with the Dungeons & Dragons and another system. So there's what you want to do when you're going to use a game like this, like a role-playing game, to teach something like a moral or value. You want to pick a system first. The two systems that I have run with my own, BigGeek and BigGeek 2, are obviously Dungeons & Dragons. This is the Player's Handbook. It's the 5th edition. It's not super complicated. I know the rules look like a lot when you look at them. There's a lot of extra stuff in there that you don't have to have. And there is a starter set that you can get that's pretty easy to pick up. I have one right back there to explain the basic rules of how to play. The game is generally designed with 12 plus in mind. That is if that person is actually learning the rules and running them. But let's assume that you're an adult and that you are wanting to run this game for kids. You can actually run the game for, I'd say, as 8 and up. I am currently running a game for Mini Geek and her friends from ages 8 to 11. And Mini Geek 2 joins in, although his interest seems to come and go depending on what's happening in any given game session. So, that's Dungeons & Dragons. There's another game system I want to mention briefly, and that's No Thank You Evil. I'm going to do another video discussing the virtues of this particular game, sort of like a review, but also how to use this game as a teaching tool for younger kids. Someone, for example, the age of Mini Geek 2, which is 6. It's a fantastic system, much simpler than Dungeons & Dragons, and it would be a great starting point for those of you if you're a parent and you don't have a whole lot of experience with Dungeons & Dragons or other more complicated systems. But for today, we're going to talk about D&D and running a game in that. Now, in this example, we're going to pick a moral or a value. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want you to create an outline. You're not going to write the entire adventure. Some of you more experienced game masters out there might be used to actually creating the entire adventure ahead of time, all of the maps, everything, and that's great if you've got adolescents playing the game and, that's your thing. But for this, we're talking about focusing on kids 8 to 11. The group that I'm running. You really only have to go with a basic outline. A couple of pages. That's it. And you're going to put on that outline some basics, such as, what's the theme that you're going for? Now, that's the first thing I would pick. And you really do want to be conscious about what you're going to try to teach. If you're using this as a teaching tool. If it's fun, then you pick whatever. But in this case, we're going to go for something that you're trying to teach. Now, a great place to find a moral or a value that you want to teach that you maybe just kind of thinking, well, how do I do that? Where do I start? Look at children's books. Specifically, look at children's books that you actually have read to your kids or have perused over and thought, this is great. The way in which they tell this story, it's usually relatively short, and they have a moral or a value, many of them do, at the end of that. So you want to look through a whole bunch of children's books for inspiration in how to tell a story and do it effectively. Now, after you've got your value picked out, or your moral picked out, let's, in this case, choose selfishness versus altruism. Now, you're not going to say those words to the kids who are playing characters in your story. This is really just for you, your information, and where to start. Okay? So, what you're going to do, and just keep in mind, I'm sorry, I skipped over a section here I wanted to talk about. When you're creating a story, you're wanting to remember where the children's cognitive ability is at. So between 8 and 11, their imagination is where they're at. They aren't necessarily focused on super rules-oriented things, having a super specific map, a layout. If you're a dungeon master for other games, you might be used to kind of really hemming things in, and then the characters have some understanding, or the players have some understanding of how the rule system works. They want more concrete rules, and that's where adolescents are at. They're kind of wanting to define their world a little more, and then test their boundaries. And when we're talking about ages 8 to 11, you want to let their imagination run wild. So an outline's actually better, and staying less rules heavy is better too. They don't necessarily, not confined by rules in the same way. They want some basics, but they want to know that, unicorns actually can exist in this world, or something that they haven't, that they imagined that's not even in the books, can exist. So just keep that in mind while you're working on this adventure for them. So let's go ahead and create, as an example, a typical fantasy, just a fantasy scene. So you've got a village and a bunch of villagers, and then we're going to go ahead and create a monster, let's say a dragon, that is taking something from those villagers. He lives up in the hills, and he's taking a tithe. He's essentially bullying the villagers into giving them food and treasure, etc. Okay. Now you're gonna create a little bit more to the village. Let's add a bunch of names. Okay, and you don't have to write out a whole thing of this is this character and this is this character. Just create a bunch of names and then think of some different types of people that you can act out, and that's important. Get up. Act out. Walk around the table. If you're good at using accents, use those voices. Use all of those things. Now, keep in mind, you're just putting this down in an outline, so you're gonna maybe make a couple notations to yourself. Use high-pitched voice. Use low-pitched voice with a character. Even if it's just when you're creating this outline, just a bunch of names for villagers. That's fine. You just have something to pull from as you are creating the adventure. And you're going to create these interactions with the kids, with their characters. Okay, and so basically the villagers are going to ask this group of adventurers, for help, and they're going to say, essentially, we have this monster, this dragon that's living up in the hills, and he's he's demanding that we pay him all of this money and this food, and it's draining us, and we're sad. Now, here's a space where you can explore feelings and use this as something else to teach the kids. What I mean is, so a child around age 8 is just starting to kind of explore a more expanded version of their feelings. Early on, at 5, 6, 7 even, children their understanding of feelings is sort of mad, sad, glad. Everything falls into I'm mad, I'm sad, or I'm glad. As they get a little bit older, they start having some understanding of variations of those feelings. I'm not mad, I'm frustrated. So what I'm saying is, when you create these characters, there is room, there's an opportunity here for you to create characters that have slightly more complicated feelings about the dragon. Are they mad? Are they sad? Are they glad? Maybe there's more something to it. Are they frustrated? Are they worried? Are they, and what will help the teaching part comes when you are able to help a child label some of those emotions. They may already feel these things. In fact, they probably do, but they just don't have the names for them. When they're able to name them and label them, then they're better able to understand them. You can use role-playing to help with that in a big way. Role-playing can help when you're playing these villagers with understanding themselves. So an 8-year-old most likely is going to be like BigGeek. She enjoys playing essentially a version of herself in the game. Dungeons and Dragons allows for that, but it also allows for players to play something that is not them, that is completely different. We have an 11-year-old in our group that is playing somebody who is very much not herself. It's a completely different person, but I think that actually, that gives a room for them to understand what might it be like to be this other person and empathize with them, and then through that character, well, how would they empathize with or not empathize with the villagers? So you're going to have a variety if you have kids that are a variety of ages, and that's okay, that's great. And when they watch each other, they're going to feed off each other, they're going to see, I didn't think I could do that, I didn't think I could be like that. That's what you want. You want to use Dungeons and Dragons like that in this teaching manner. You're teaching essentially understanding of feelings at this point. Now, we're going to get back to the values and morals. All right, so you're going to effectively create a village that needs help. Then what you're going to do is you're going to create this monster he's a bully. That's really what he is. He's a bully. But here's the thing. It's really simple to just say, I'm creating a bully, and what you need to do is go take him down. That's not really what you want to teach, right? So why do bullies do what they do? That's partly what we want to teach in this, is maybe there's a motivation, and maybe there is a person behind that monster, behind this beast. Okay, so the dragon is a bully, and he has bullied a whole other group of lesser monsters into doing his bidding. So what the adventurers are going to do is eventually they're going to find their way into the wilderness. They're going to be on their way to visit this dragon to solve the problem. And let me back up. I skipped over a point here. It's important that in this example that we're using that we don't pigeonhole them into solving the problem with violence, right? So, I mean, that's way too easy. And it's really not something you want to teach anyway. So what the villagers should do when they hire the PCs, when they hire the characters, these kids, to go help them, they hire them to help them. And leave it more open-ended. Don't say, we're hiring you to go kill the monster, go slay the dragon. It's not about that. It's about solving this problem, right? And their problem is this dragon is taking all of their stuff. They're being bullied. We don't want to solve violence with more violence, all right? So these characters, as they go into the wilderness, they have an interaction with another group of lesser monsters. Now, there is plenty to choose from in Dungeons and Dragons. There's the monster manual, has lots of stuff in there. You can create some of your own. Let's use, in this instance, we're going to use kobolds. Kobolds are these small, halfling-sized creatures that are oftentimes bullied by dragons, if you go by Dungeons and Dragons lore. And they're easily scared, they're high in number, they usually travel in large packs, and they're lizard-like themselves. They're kind of the perfect, because they get bullied themselves, but they're also monsters. And then they turn around and they do some bullying of their own. that's oftentimes how bullies work in real life. So let's have them interact a couple of times with the kobolds. And the first time they interact with them, don't just throw them at them and have it be, they're attacking. Give them options. It's all about options. Let them think creatively. Let them use their imagination. Have them hear the kobolds having a discussion about being bullied and how sad they feel and hurt they feel. Let them express their emotions before the characters see them. They overhear this. Give them some sort of options to say, maybe we can talk to them. Feed that to them, just a little bit. You don't tell them, go talk to them. Obviously, you're a dungeon master. You need to just present the scenario and then let them do what they're going to do. But present it in a way that they have lots of options, and that actually a really good option might be to go talk to them and not necessarily fight them in this instance, because you're trying to use this as a teaching tool. All right, so that let's say that they do that. You have a couple of more interactions along the way. Hopefully, most of them end with the characters talking to them to find out what their motivations are, empathize with them, and let them know that they're going to go talk to the dragon or deal with him. All right. So eventually, the idea is that in this story, they're going to get to the top, they're going to find the dragon, they're going to confront him. Again, same thing with the kobolds. Don't have them just rush in, rah! They have a fire-breathing dragon. Have them meet the dragon. Here's an example of what you might do. I'm telling you this is the only way, but an example, an alternate to charging in, might be that they manage to sneak up on the dragon doesn't hear them, and the dragon is sitting on his pile of treasure, and he's crying. He's sad, and he's depressed, and he's saying things to himself. He's talking to himself because he's so alone. And he says things like, maybe I need to get more treasure to feel happier. Things like that. Hopefully you end up creating a scenario where the characters attempt to try to talk to the dragon, empathize with him, and find out his motivation and work through it. Let the characters talk to him, and then if they struggle with figuring out, okay, what should we do now to help him, then throw in a line like, well, are you saying that I should give it back? Will that make me feel better? Feed them that, and then as an option. And hopefully they take the bait and say yes. So then he says, well, how? And let the characters tell you how he should give it back. How should he give? Let them come up with the way. Let's just say in this instance they say, okay, you're going to fly back and you're going to give all the treasure back. So have him get on, they all get on his back and they fly back. He gives treasure back, but he doesn't just give it back. Let the characters do it. He piles the treasure down and then he looks at them and says, now what should I do? And then they explain, here's what you should do. Let them do it. Can you show me what I'm supposed to do, for example? And then they give it to the villagers. The villagers are happy and thankful. The dragon then, this is really important, has a moment of reflection. He turns to them and says, that felt really good. That felt great to give it back. Why haven't I discovered this before? That was amazing, this feeling of giving versus taking. It's so much better. And then have them form, hopefully, a relationship where he can then, maybe a friendship, and then he can then be called upon as a friend in a later game where these same characters are in a time of need. Now, so that's really what we're going for. Just summarizing all kind of condensed here, that you've just created, if you followed what I was saying, a scenario where these kids have gotten to play a game and discover that altruism can actually be beneficial versus selfishness. There's a virtue there in pursuing altruism. And then hopefully they will take that out into their lives in the real world. And if you make the story memorable, You know, I mean, if you sit here and you try to tell this story, just blah, 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 and then this happens, and then this happens, and we roll some dice, it's not going to be interesting to them. Kids of this age, between 8 and 11, dice rolling and all the rules, that's a supplement. The game itself is a supplement to what you're doing. You need to be animated. How I am right now. I get up around the table, I talk, I move, I change my voice, I make it really high, I change how I look, I change my hat, I'll wear different things. I have a speaker that I use, a Bluetooth speaker, and behind my Dungeon Master screen, I will punch in, different sound effects, and I'll even hide the speaker so that they well, where'd that come from? It's all about making an ambience. Make it interactive. The kids need to feel like they are engaged in telling a story with you, participating in this story, not just they're along for the ride and you're lecturing them. That isn't going to work. And it doesn't work in storybooks. I'm sure every parent has picked up a storybook and thought, this one isn't very good. It's very beat you over the head with this moral or this value. That's not going to work. It has to feel so interactive that they don't even realize they're learning. All right, so I think I've lectured enough. That's the idea. So I'm going to continue doing these how-to videos in addition to we'll continue doing our reviews. And I know I said I wanted to do a painting video. I'm waiting on some equipment so that we can do a proper how-to paint miniatures video. Sometime in the future here, I do hope I want to talk to you about No Thank You Evil and running a game for younger children, because I think you can use a lot of the same techniques we're talking about, but just simplifying it in a way that is understandable for a younger child. I think No Thank You Evil, I think, is actually for ages, it says ages 5 and up. You could maybe even play with a 4-year-old, depends on where they're at. It's really meant for young kids, so it's a great tool. Okay, I think that's enough. Please like, share, and subscribe to BigGeek Mini Geek if you enjoy these videos. And obviously, we're going to keep making them. All right, thanks for watching.